Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk about the upcoming potential runes changes that Meddler talked about earlier today in his talk post, and also that might be going to a PvE near you for the preseason. Now, some of these changes are likely to go through, others are still experimental and may or may not actually happen, so take this all with a grain of salt. You can also read the full post down in the comment section, or in the description. I will have it linked. Anyways, moving on to talk about this. Now, these are all changes for the preseason. They will not be going live, and preseason is generally a time for more experimental changes in the first place, which is why Riot are looking to make these changes then. First and foremost, for the changes that are most likely to go through, we have a change to Dark Harvest. Now, this has been a bit of a terror in solo queue of late. Lots of junglers have been picking it up as opposed to Electrocute because the longer cooldown doesn't really matter, and the damage is significantly better than Electrocute and easier to get, so that's generally been the trade-off. But the problem is Dark Harvest deals so much upfront damage that there's not really a whole lot you can do about it. So Riot are experimenting with a change where it triggers when you auto-attack a champion that's below 50% HP and deals bonus damage. The damage increases every time it's triggered as opposed to having to stack up souls, and it has a relatively long CD. They mention it might be around 45 seconds or so. Now, what this means is that Dark Harvest no longer requires the emphasis on farming, on just staying in your jungle, AFK farming up souls, and then trying to get to that transform rate where you can just keep it available. And also, it will no longer be in a situation where you just auto-attack the guy once and deal all of his HP. So this change is a lot more around an execute sort of damage that a lot of champions, especially someone like Zed, for example, can really benefit from, as they already kind of fit auto attacks into their play pattern in the first place. So I think it's going to be a really interesting change. I don't know exactly how I feel about it. I think it's definitely healthier than current Dark Harvest, but I don't know if ultimately it's going to be any less frustrating to play against, because you just kind of walk in a lane, they proc it on you during the gank, and you just kind of die. And there's not a whole lot else you can do about that, as opposed to Electrocute, which at least puts most of its damage up front, so you can make better decision making around how much HP you have left. So I don't know, I think it's arguably a better design than the current Dark Harvest, but I think it still might have problems. We'll have to see. Let me know what you guys are thinking of that down in the comment section below. Riot are also moving to make Overgrowth a bit more of a generic rune that more champions are happy with taking, as opposed to just HP stackers. It now will give flat HP per X nearby deaths, and gives an additional percent HP bonus to you after a certain amount of flat HP has been gained. So if you gain, let's say, 1 HP or 5 HP per every 8 minion deaths nearby, and when you hit 125 bonus HP, you upgrade and get plus 2.5% HP. Something along those kind of lines. I think that's a good change. I think it does make it a little bit more viable for people who don't stack HP. Will it still be super common? I really don't think so. I think the other options that you have on that sort of tier are better, but I don't necessarily think that this is a bad change for Overgrowth. I think it will be a little more enticing to champions that are already going primary in Resolve. We'll have to see. I think it's a bit of a smaller change. I think it's interesting that Riot have even bothered to spend some time, and they know they're going to be changing Overgrowth in this, but I guess we'll have to end up seeing how things actually end up turning out. Finally, moving on to some of the more experimental changes that are changes that Riot aren't entirely sure if they're going to go through with these or not, or at the very least, if they are pretty sure that they're going to do it, they're not sure in what kind of manner they are going to change things. First and foremost, let's talk about the elephant in the room, bone plating. Currently on PvE, if you haven't been paying attention, bone plating is actually being removed from the game. It will no longer be a thing, with the reasoning behind that being that bone plating is so incredibly strong for what's essentially just a regular tier rune. It's really interesting that you have to end up tracking bone plating so closely in the laning phase, because just getting that proc can be such a big deal in winning trades or winning fights or being able to turn a gank around, that sort of thing. Bone plating is just such a big deal, and if they do have it up, it sort of disincentivizes actually going for trades. Now, if you're playing a champion like Kled, for example, you can still kind of poke with your Q, maybe get their bone plating off, then try to go for a trade. There's a little bit more strategic thinking to it, but especially if you're someone like, let's say, Garen or Darius, who don't really have a way to poke the shield off, well, you just kind of don't trade ever, because if your bone plating is gone and they have theirs, you're just going to lose that trade. So I think that its removal is a good idea. I think it is way too strong for what it currently offers. However, the rune that Riot are replacing with has been a bit contentious. Now, this rune is called Shield Bash. If you haven't seen it yet, what it does is anytime you gain a new shield, your next auto attack, as long as you still have that shield, deals bonus adaptive damage based on your maximum HP and the strength of the shield. What this essentially means is that if I am Nautilus, for example, and I press W, I gain a huge shield, and then my next auto attack, which will probably be a staggering blow empowered auto attack, will also deal a lot of bonus damage based on the strength of the shield and my maximum HP. This is a huge deal, I think, for a lot of tanks. Now, I do like it because its effectiveness is still tied to your defense, and I think it has some interesting applications outside of just tanks who can shield themselves, because someone like Janna, for example, can shield your AD carry. If you were already in Resolve, then you're going to get a lot of bonus damage. If she's shielding her frontline tank, they're going to be able to get a bunch of bonus damage on their next auto attack. However, a lot of summoners have been disappointed with it because it is a damaging rune. Its whole point is that it gives you more damage. Sure, there is a defensive component to it, and that you do have to be able to either shield yourself or have someone shield you, but at the same time, it doesn't do anything to increase your durability, it just gives you more upfront damage. And meanwhile, bone plating, if overpowered, just straight gave you defenses. So a lot of people have been unhappy with Shield Bash and have been talking with Riot about it and saying, Riot, why would you bother putting this in when you said specifically this preseason you would be toning down damage and trying to make things less bursty, that sort of thing. I think Shield Bash is an interesting concept because at the end of the day, I don't think it meaningfully increases damage to most of the crowd. I think that, yes, obviously tanks will be dealing a lot more damage than they did before if they have any kind of self-shielding, but they were already the lowest damaging class in the game. So I think I'm okay with tanks being able to get significantly more damage. I really am not too disappointed with that. So I think it's okay. I know a lot of people, though, are very disappointed with it. So let me know what you guys are thinking of Shield Bash down in the comment section. If you think it's great, if you think it's bad, would love to hear your thoughts. Riot have also talked about a couple other runes that they are looking at changing or potentially removing. Kleptomancy is actually a rune that they've been eyeing as a way to make it more, basically something that other champions want to take, that a wider audience are actually like, yeah, we'll take Kleptomancy this game. And also trying to make it not mandatory on Ezreal, because right now that's the biggest user of Kleptomancy. He's, I think, the only one that's still really in the meta that really likes Kleptomancy. Obviously, top lane Victor has been taking that of late, but we'll have to see where he ends up following the preseason. But either way, changes might be changing the cooldown on it, giving it, changing what the drop rate looks like, those kinds of things, trying to tweak it so that a lot more champions can get use out of it. I'm especially thinking of champions that have high amounts of auto attacking in their kits in general. Someone like Sona, for example, who already does a lot of auto attacking, if we can make it more palatable on her, for example. But that sort of a thing, changes to Kleptomancy, which I think are a good idea. I think right now it is a very niche rune in a niche tree in the first place. There are very few champions that actually ever want to just take Kleptomancy. It doesn't even feel like an option for many champions. So we'll see if the changes can make it a little bit more favorable to some champions. I personally think it will end up being removed anyways. I think it's just too random. I think the requirements are just too much, but we will have to see. There might be a way for Riot to get it into a better spot. Celerity is also being looked at for change. It will, instead of giving you bonus movement speed and giving you bonus damage based on your move speed, will be amplifying other movement speed bonuses that you gain. So someone like Hecarim, for example, would still be very happy with this rune, as it would give him significantly more movement speed off of the Devastating Charge. Rammus as well on Powerball could be getting significantly more movement speed, which doesn't turn into damage on Rammus, but on Hecarim it definitely does. We'll have to see. I don't know necessarily if that would be more or less useful. I think the problem at the moment is that you take Celerity just because you want the bonus movement speed, not for any other reason, not because you're specifically after more move speed. We'll have to see. I think Celerity could still have, this new Celerity, I should say, could have some more uses, because you do have things like Phase Rush running around or Nimbus Cloak, which already give you a bunch of flat movement speed, so getting even more speed out of Celerity might make them an enticing choice. We'll have to see. I think the conversion of damage is what made Celerity useful in the first place, more so than just the damage conversion, but Riot clearly aren't happy with it. They are looking at maybe changing it around. We'll have to see. Finally, Chrysalis, Riot are actually assessing if it's still needed in the game. Chrysalis was added because there were a lot of players who were frustrated with the lack of early game defenses that they really came to rely upon. So it was added as a way to give champions something that they can take early on, help them survive a difficult lane, that then can eventually transform into offensive stats. So if you are playing somebody like, I don't know, any kind of mid laner, let's say Veigar, for example, and you're in Resolve, you can take Chrysalis, use that bonus HP to survive your lane, and then if you get enough takedowns, it converts into a ability power for him, or for AD if you're an AD stacking champion. So with the addition of the sort of stat paths that Riot are adding to the rune system, there may no longer be a need for Chrysalis. Now, I still actually like it. I like the fact that there is sort of a conversion to it, but I will admit that it does kind of play in the same sort of space. You're taking Chrysalis because you want to survive lane. You would be taking, let's say, flat HP runes if you're just trying to survive lane. So we'll have to see where this actually ends up. Obviously, if it is removed, Riot will have to find something else that they can include in that spot, which could be an interesting choice, getting some more unique effects in that tree. But again, we'll have to see. Obviously, there are some other big shakeups in that tree in the first place with the overgrowth, bone plating, and shield bash changes. So we will have to end up seeing where they go with that. Anyways, those are all of the rune changes. I'm actually quite excited for a lot of these. I think it's going to make preseason very interesting to play. Obviously, the new rune system still a bit of a work in progress, but I think Riot have gotten it to a point where it's not so out of whack that they have to constantly be making changes to it. I think it's in a stabler spot, and I think with the changes in the preseason, hopefully it gets even better and more usable, especially for a wider variety of champions. Hopefully it serves their interests better. Anyways, let me know what you guys think of all these rune changes down in the comment section. Would love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. And if you're looking for more Grab the Lantern content, you can check out my blog, which is linked down in the description. I upload an article just about each and every single day for your enjoyment. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And now I'll talk to you all later.